if you joined us at the live event in 2019, then you will remember that we were able to um, invite and experience the presentations of two chiefs of indigenous communities from the Amazon who came to Chicago and presented their wishes for their communities relative to gold mining. They've become an important part of the fabric of the Chicago responsible jewelry community and the responsible jewelry transformative sense. Susan spent a lot of time working with these chiefs and with their communities. We went through hell and high water to get them visas from Brazil to America in 2019. And clearly we're not meeting live this year, but Chief Lucas really wanted to be able to share their voices at the conference again and make sure that we keep in mind the people in the Amazon who are dealing with the impacts of illegal gold mining, but who also want to be able to economically benefit in a responsible way from the resources that are their land. So I'm just going to queue up this video and we'll hear from Chief Lucas and some of the members of his tribe and some of the other tribes that are living in the same area that they are living in Brazil. So, and then Susan and I will be back for a quick chat after the video.
Olá, bom dia, eu me chamo Paula Renata, sou da etnia atariana, daqui do Alto Rio Negro, daqui do estado da Amazônia. Venho através desse vídeo falar sobre a importância da preservação da natureza. Essa é uma oportunidade para falar para todo mundo que nós existimos. E muitas das vezes, nossos direitos indígenas são violados. Nessas situações, nós somos obrigados a deixar nossas aldeias em busca de oportunidade, contanto que a gente tenha a nossa cultura, a nossa riqueza, nossos artesanatos. Gostaríamos de estar trabalhando de uma maneira certa. Então, gostaria de pedir aos pessoal que nos assiste que nos ajude a trabalhar de uma maneira certa, sem prejudicar a nossa mãe natureza. Nós gostaríamos de ter uma vida digna. Gostaria que nos ajudasse a preservar a nossa natureza, nossa mãe terra, que nos ajudasse em tudo que nós pudéssemos. Então, gostaria de agradecer a todo mundo que nos assiste, mandar abraço a todos e muito obrigada.
Meu nome é Sara Munduruku, sou da etnia Munduruku aqui do Amazonas. Venho através desse vídeo expressar sobre a importância de preservar a floresta, porque muitas vezes temos nossos direitos violados e queremos mostrar que estamos firmes e seguimos lutando para preservar a nossa cultura, os nossos povos e nossos costumes. Venho aqui dizer que muitas vezes temos que sair da nossa aldeia para procurar oportunidades em centros urbanos. Queremos explorar nossas riquezas de maneira organizada. Temos óleos essenciais, temos a medicina tradicional e queremos poder mostrar às pessoas a nossa cultura. Queremos que nos ajude a preservar a nossa natureza, mas ensinando técnicas que podemos tirar nossas riquezas do solo e subsolo, sem prejudicar a mãe natureza, pois queremos ter uma vida digna. Existem também vários garimpos clandestinos nas reservas indígenas, que há anos assolam o nosso território. Eles ameaçam os povos indígenas, tem assassinatos, tem estupros das mulheres indígenas, tem o tráfico de drogas. Por essa razão, peço ao mundo que nos ajude, pois o sistema brasileiro não nos respeita. Enfim, quero mandar abraços a todos que assistem esse vídeo e que nos ajude a preservar a nossa floresta. Muito obrigada.
Eu não ameti. Essa etnia tariano cananina. Ato congotigoa na percação sana sirutoma. Ato esta kunaya masamen derena masane kunoya sanina. Ato nahkun sane nyapel ya nahkun veni petiane ma yese wai. Nasa base sa costume ten robuti petiaro é garimpo ouro tiranicere wai veni petiane ma arconha seni doti semitino é ter sane noya sane rompel ya sane arcunha aí um semen essa ayun senah campo ni kana desporo kana ayun noya no que ni na é essa pona né ya essa né nane o sinina é continuidade ter essa né ya ayun no ya no essa terin honen dara sinina. Ainonya, ainonya ve, aino sananya. Tego mahkunya san. Ni pe de seravena, san senia. Ati mu kore mahkunya. Ayun, tontani.
Eu sou o Lucas Tucano, aqui do estado do Amazonas, pertence a São Gabriel da Cachoeira, local chamado Cabeça do Cachorro, aqui no Amazonas. Eu venho aqui agradecer às pessoas que estão me assistindo para que certifiquem quando forem comprar os minérios. Muitas das vezes elas são clandestinas. Ela fomenta a invasões dentro das reservas indígenas, aí há desmatamento, a poluição de rios. Então, o que nós queremos é trabalhar de uma forma organizada, planejada, sustentável, para que nós possamos ter uma vida digna. A todos os conferencistas, agradeço de coração a Susan, a fundação que a Susan está, e a todos vocês que estão me assistindo. Lembre que nós existimos. Nosso povo está de braços abertos para nós defender a nossa floresta, o nosso meio ambiente, o nosso clima mundial. Muito obrigado.
I think Susan's planning to join me back here on stage for a few minutes to discuss that. But while I'm waiting, a couple of really important things happened there. First of all, Chief Lucas fully embraces the importance of having the voices of the beginning of the supply chain present. And so he scrambled to create this video with support from the Responsible Jewelry Transformative, so he could do that, to get the voices here. And we heard from them in their various indigenous languages, representing their indigenous traditional dress to remind us that each voice matters. So that was one thing that happened in that video. The other thing that happened in that video was he was very concerned to get some of the young women from the tribes representing. But why is that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, society is only as healthy as its women are healthy, and women are often the most vulnerable in these communities. But two, and this is really important, they're not just representative of vulnerable womanhood. They are also representative of the fact that women are also frequently the driving force behind economic beneficiation and organization for their communities. So women are a source of economic power to their communities, even as they are often victimized by some of the conditions in those communities. And so having women's voices at this conference and in this video from Chief Lucas is extremely important for us to remember. You're going to be meeting powerful women throughout this conference who are organizing at the NGO level, at the government level, at the mine level. And so I think that video was profound for bringing forth all of those elements in just a couple of short minutes.
Yes, I need to mention also that after Chief Lucas came to, and Miguel, where Chief Miguel came to the conference in 2019, they came asking for help to preserve their forest and protection of their people. In almost a year to the date that they were at the conference, Chief Lucas was stabbed in the side by illegal miners that he was trying to get off of his territory. So he lives up in a very dangerous area on the border of Venezuela, and so he since then that video was done in a place called Park of the Tribes, where he lives now, and it's on the outskirts of the city of Manaus. And each of the young women in that video were from separate tribes, and many of the things that they're talking about today are woven throughout the conference. Trafficking of women happens in the illegal mining in South America, and the indigenous are losing their young. They're losing the women to sex trafficking, and they're losing their boys to being drug mules. So also, Chief Lucas talked about pollution of the river in the Amazon, and we talk about that with World Wildlife Federation in Mercury. But I think, it's important for us just in seeing that video to remember that they exist, which Lucas said, and those are just such profound words. Not only remembering that Chief Lucas and all of the people that are living as refugees in Tribe Park exist, and they're refugees from the bad elements in gold mining and the bad elements that do exist, unfortunately. But to remember all of those that exist in mining communities globally. So,
and Chief Lucas is a really great example of the gray that I was speaking about in the opening session. When trying to help and support initiatives closer to the beginning of our supply chain, there's a tremendous amount of threading the needle that has to happen. Because we have people who want to be able to get economic beneficiation from their land. They don't always have the resources they need to do it well. The Bolsonaro government in particular is extremely good at manipulating people to see things a certain way. And then they live within Brazil. They do have to figure out ways to work with the government and achieve the right thing. So this concept of threading the needle is really important, that when we engage in these conversations, there are going to be voices, often very conflicting voices in the conversation, representing very important points of view. So the presence of conflict doesn't mean one person's wrong and the other person's right. The presence of conflict means it's messy, and there are many voices trying to bring clarity to messy topics. The conflict is necessary. We have to have the conflict in discussion so we can thread the needle together and figure out the best ways to solve these problems. So Susan and I talk about this a lot, that these topics are sometimes difficult to bring forward because there are argumentative voices in the room. And what we say is, we welcome that. Let's bring all the argument to the room and let's have the conversation so that we can all have a more expansive view of the problems and the possible solutions than any one of us would have without the argumentative voices.
It brings a much more rich understanding and helps us to move forward. Absolutely.
Yep. So let's see, our first panel session starts in, I want to say it's 15 minutes. So we start at 9 a.m. Central Time. I realize Central Time is confusing people. Everybody knows about Eastern Time and Pacific Time, but Susan and I live in the flyover in the middle of the country, and we're pushing our Central Time on all of you. So it starts at 9 a.m. Central Time, which is in 15 minutes. And unless you have something else to add, Susan?
No, I think that, yeah, everyone can go and get a coffee break or whatever break they need and be ready for this panel coming up. I can see that Raphael is on, Susan is on, Hans Merkett is joining us. He's in between meetings at the Kimberley Process Plenary. So I think we will be ready to go. And this call to action is something that was about the Congo, this river basin spill. This was splashed on the front page of the New York Times. You know, it was all over for a day, and then it disappeared. Only the problem didn't disappear, and it's tragic. So we're really very lucky to be able to hear from Raphael, who's coming to us from the DRC. You know, fish died, people died, hippos died, and it's a real problem for people that live along the river to deal with this. So we want to hear what they recommend to do, what is happening, what the situation is now. So everyone should take a break and come fresh to that panel that starts at 9 o'clock our time in the Midwest.
And what we want you to do is get your coffee or your tea, or depending on what time of day it is, your beer, and then come back to this session and go to the networking area, jump at a table and meet someone and start talking, because that's how the initiatives you're going to hear about in the next 2 days, many of them began just like that. So please come right back and network before the 9 o'clock session. We'll send you an alert when it's time to come to the room.
Thank you.
Right. See you guys in a few.
Thanks for joining.